respect to the universe. This is Nahashon representing. This one is like a Bible verse. This bless I and I people, because I see the land covered in evil. Rumors of war escalating while the leaders faking. And they fake a lot in Kenya. So I wanted to start with a reggae intro. I always wanted to say that. And because this is mostly about reggae, right? And I wanted to give the details. There's a certain lady, her name is Makenda Ndinda, right? She scored 282 marks in KCPE. She got admitted to Olympic High School, right? That's in Kibera. And she got to school on January 11th. Other guys got there, I think, January 4th or 3rd, right? So when she got in, she went into math and geography class. And after those classes, she got the shock of her life. The deputy principal called her and said, you know what? You either choose your dreadlocks or you choose your books. And she could not forgo her conscience. So she had to choose her dreadlocks. And this is what I wanted to speak about. Let us have more teachings for the youth so that we understand these Rastafarians. We do not judge them and we know how to deal with them. So this young girl was very happy that she got into Olympic High School. Why? Because not everybody gets into high school. Some of them never make it past class 8. Others never make it to Form 1. She escaped 2 things at the same time. And I wanted to give an example. The kids who started school in 1995, class 1, they cleared in 2002, right? And 44% of them, by the time of clearing, those who had started, right, they had, quit school for some reason, dropped out of school for some reason, not quit, right? Let me use the proper word, dropped out of school for some reason. 44%, right? And then you remember that enrollment into high school is also bad, right? So anyway, Kibaki came with the free primary education, and in 2010, right? I think this was the first batch that was clearing. Okay, so in 2010, let's just say in 2010, 33%, right, of the kids who had started in class 1, they had dropped out of school. But you see, there's something positive here. They moved from 44% to 33%, right? After the introduction of free primary education, right? But then something strange happens when we get to 2011, right? For those who cleared in 2011, they had started in 2004. Only 37% of them dropped out of school before they reached class 8. So we can see we went from 44%, which is very bad before free primary education. Then we went to 33%, which is a bit good, right? It's a drop, it's a good drop. And then now we started moving upwards to 37%. So was it a temporary fix in terms of primary education, a temporary shock to our education system? And now we're overcoming that shock and you're going back to the same old system where guys drop up even before they get to class 8. So this young lady, Ndinda, right, I think from Mukambani, she passed that hurdle of making it to class 8 and doing the exam. And then she made it past that hurdle of going to high school. The last stats that I had, 200,000 kids drop out of high school, out of the education system as they're trying to transition from primary to secondary. So she made it twice. She escaped 2 knives. Another funny thing I noted, right, was that the father paid 12,000 shillings for fees. Now, I think Olympic High School is a boarding school. Or is it a day school? I don't know. But the father paid fees. And we have cash for free primary education. We actually have 29.5 billion for free primary education. The question is it free? And if it is free, then why is the father paying for that cash? Or if Olympic is a boarding school, then why are parents who are going to day schools, taking their kids to day school, paying for education? It's never free. Free is a term used by the government, right, to get votes. But you always pay for it. It comes from your pockets. And the government returns it to your pockets. But it returns it after having used it and stolen it. So what you get in return is far less than what you give as taxes. So anyway, when it comes to the free secondary day education, right? The fees, they cost 22,400 and something, and the government pays 11,000. So you have a huge deficit of around, let's say, that's 20,000, right? Yeah, 11,000. You have a deficit of around 11,000. And this deficit the parent will cover. So it's not really free because the parent has to cover something, and it's not really free because they are taking it from your pocket, stealing it, circulating it in inefficient ways, and then giving back less than what they took from you. And how do they steal this cash? How do they use it inefficiently, or all those kinds of stuff? One, they buy dysfunctional laptops for kids who don't need them. They procure wrongly edited books that have to be corrected, which means a new contract, and most likely by the same person. Because I think they just printed wrongly edited books so that they can get a new contract. But that specific is a theory. Now, there's missing textbooks, right? Like, the government releases cash for textbooks, but you see 4 or 5 students sharing textbooks, and you wonder. There are endless school projects. Like the project said, yes, they won't take cash. They will move as per the government recommendation. Use this cash for tuition, use this cash for operations. But they will have endless school projects that can take 11 years to complete, or just to move to the next step. So anyway, that is just by the way, right? Let's get back to the Rastafarian stuff. So here I'll be dealing with what is Rastafarianism, right? Because you can't really argue on this point unless you understand what they mean by Rastafarianism. Is it just having a head full of ignorance, or is it an actual belief? Let's look at it. The Rastafarianism started in the early 1900s, right? Where in the Caribbean, guys were still suffering from what they call the Babylon system, where the British were still ruling over them. I think Jamaica is still a dominion or a realm of the UK. Many people do not know that, but it's still. And they wanted an end to this system because they felt like the captives in Babylon, like the Jewish captives in Babylon. And so they wanted an end to this thing that's similar to the Babylon system, right? And they were trying to look for a way, because there's no way your oppressor will teach you how to overcome the oppression. That is impossible, right? So they are looking for their own way of overcoming oppression. And one of the ways is by examining what you believe, right? So they were examining that. And they had what they call prophets. One of them was Marcus Garvey, one of the most brightest guys in the Caribbean, to move from the Caribbean. As in, I really love this guy. He had very nice quotes. Check him out when you can. Very bright fellow. And this is what he said in 1920. He said, "Look to Africa, for a king will be crowned, and our deliverance is at hand." And when the Jamaicans heard it, they were happy, because there's this bright guy, and he said deliverance is at hand. He knows what he's talking about. And guess what? In 1930, Haile Selassie was crowned Emperor of Ethiopia. So now the prophecy, it had come true to the Jamaicans, to the Rastafarians, because they now had seen that their deliverance is at hand from this Babylon system, from these colonizers, from these people who are taking their resources by force, from these people who have put in place home guards to oppress them and to exploit them, right? And so they saw that this guy, the deliverance is at hand, and it will come by the hands of the newly crowned Emperor of Ethiopia, King Haile Selassie. So what happened? They have their name for God is Jah, right? They believe in the Trinity. They believe Haile Selassie is part of the Trinity, right? The name Jah, it comes from the Old Testament. You can find it in Psalms 84 verse 4. It actually comes from the name Yahweh, and then you can shorten it to Yah, and then now throughout the years there was a translation that was Jah. The King James Version has this translation of Jah in Psalm 68 verse 4, right? Sing unto God, sing praises to his name, extol his name that rideth upon the heavens by his name Jah. So when they say Jah, Rastafari, they know where they're getting the name Jah from, right? Again, the King James Version, it was started printing in 1604, then it was completed by 1611 under the sponsorship of who? King James, hence the name King James Version, right? So, okay, we know the basic tenets, like where they're from, what they aim to do, and where they get certain names from. But how do they interact with others? What are their beliefs? They believe in something called levity, righteous living. They have music, reggae music, and that's why reggae music is very spiritual. Because it's part of that Rastafarian movement. It's part of that. You are not only, right, to live as a man, but you're to live as a spirit, righteously. I and I. The first I means God. The second I means me. I and I. That's how you're supposed to live. Never separating yourself from Jah, right? They smoke cannabis, which is, okay, kind of like Canada has legalized cannabis sativa. Parts of the US have delegalized it. And other countries, there's, I think, one other country, I can't remember the name. Perhaps it's Ecuador that legalized marijuana. I think it was the first country to do so, but I can't remember the name. These guys believe in living naturally. Don't mess with your system. Don't mess with nature. Stop eating GMO foods. Stop eating artificial sweeteners. Stop eating food that has moved through a factory. Eat food as it was brought forth by Jah. That's what they believe. Wear your hair proudly, because that's your African heritage. Your hair is kinky, that's the term, right? Your hair is rough. There's no need to put a palm over it, right, to smoothen it so that it can look like the one man, the white lady. You don't need to shave it so that you can get the white man's job, right? Live naturally, as Jah meant us to be meant life to be lived, right? So there's a song that summarizes kind of like what the Rastafarians believe, and ironically the name is "Don't Have to Dread to be Rasta," right? And this is what the song says: it's a life of levity, that's Rastafarian, lived by the fathers of our history. They're trying to get back their heritage, uphold the anciency and prophecies. Like Marcus Garvey, he has other prophecies besides those of Haile Selassie. They're telling them uphold. Trust in the power of the Trinity. They believe in the Trinity. And they believe that Haile Selassie is part of the Trinity, which differs from Christian organizations. But again, even Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't believe that Jesus is God, is part of the Trinity. Muslims don't believe that Jesus is part of the Trinity, right? So these guys have included Haile Selassie as part of the Trinity, but still the other guys who don't believe that Jesus is part of the Trinity, and I'll cover that later. There's a danger when it comes to that. Jesus is part of the Trinity. But anyway, just to continue, they say believe in his majesty, right? His lineage and divinity, and then the first step is serenity, right? Just live normally. Don't fight. Don't do all those things. And then knowing oneself true royalty. There's a problem with Africans, right? We imitate the others. We bleach. We smoothen our hair so that we can look like the white man. We cut our hair, right? Not because we want to, but because we want to get white collar jobs, or we want to fit into a system that was brought by the white guy, right? These guys are saying that you are royal from the beginning and that you need to maintain your royalty. Know it and maintain it. Again, there are very many differences between them, but still, these guys are they're not mad, right? Because some of their beliefs, they make a lot of sense. Some of what they're asking their members to do, it makes a lot of sense. Live a life of serenity, righteousness. Live naturally, right? You don't have to get a doctor to tell you, live naturally. eat natural foods, fruits, and all those things. These guys have already said that, right? Without the science. And the science is proving them right. So anyway, they believe in dreadlocks. I think we cover that. And this young lady, she and the family, they have dreadlocks and they wear them in a turban, right? And that was the problem that she had in school, because the deputy principal did not like that, right? So let me give an example. Again, I hope that we've, like, the Rastafarians are trying to bring back the ancient ways of Africans, the ancient ways of doing things, right? And let's see if, like, dreadlocks were an ancient thing or if they are a new thing, right? And I wanted to start with India. There's something they call the Vedic scriptures. It's the oldest scriptures in Hinduism, right? And it provides the earliest evidence of dreadlocks in India. And they were worn exclusively by men and women considered holy. So dreadlocks are for holy people, right? And I think there's another in ancient Europe some time back, 3,600 years ago, they had people with dreadlocks. And this one is the earliest, the Vedic. So it means it's past 3,600 years ago, perhaps 5,000 years ago, right? It's an ancient practice. The Israelites, right? Before we go to the Israelites, Yoruba priests of the Olokun, right? And Orisha of the deep ocean. Like Yoruba priests, they used to have locks, right? When it comes to Israel, there's number 6:5, and this is what it says. God was speaking to Moses. Yahweh, Jah was speaking to Moses, and this is what he says. When either a man or woman, you make a special vow, the vow of a Nazarite, right? To dedicate yourself to Yahweh. This is what you must do. He lists a couple of things. God lists a couple of things that you must do. And the last one, or I think the one of them, is that you must not put a razor to your head. Until that time of dedication is over, do not put a razor to your head. Let your hair grow freely. So Indians, they had it, right? Hinduism, Vedics, that's the oldest we can get, right? I think 5,000 years ago. Yoruba priests, they had it, and the Israelites had it in numbers, not even in the New Testament. Back in the day, this is an ancient practice. And this one was for holy people, dedicated to God, right? So that's one of the ways. In Ghana, they have the Akan, right? They used to have dreadlocks, and they refer to them as Mpese. And they were to be put on by priests mostly, but even common people could do that. Again, we're getting holy people, holy people, holy people. So dreadlocks, they represented something in ancient times. And our God is an ancient God. So along with the Asante, like they had drums and everything, the Rastafarians in Jamaica, right? They adopted this hairstyle. Because when they got there to the Caribbean and to the Americas, the white man had told them to shave, or had shaved their heads so that they can, all those things. So this guy decided to go back to their roots. And they took up the Akan, like they saw the Akan and the Asante, and they saw that these guys had locks. And they saw that these guys, they used to beat drums and whatever. So those guys chose to adopt those cultures because it's from ancient times. And you've seen in Israel, it's ancient times, it's ancient times, and the Yoruba, it's from ancient times. And our God is an ancient God. So anyway, there is the Spartans who, they had magistrates who would wear their hair in long locks. And they would actually braid their hair in long locks. So holy men, magistrates, and then now we have something else. We have in ancient Greece, right? There were guys called the Spartan hoplites, right? The hoplites were named after their shields. The shields were called hoplites. I'll do a thing on that in future. It's very interesting. So anyway, they used to wear locks as part of their battle dress. So warriors in ancient Greece, they used to wear locks as part of their battle dress. Warriors among the Fulani, the Wolof, and the Sere or something, the Mandika in Mali and Niger. They used to wear cornrows when they were young and then dreadlocks when they were old. So when you saw dreadlocks within these communities, you knew that that was a warrior. So holy men, men who pronounce judgments over their people, and then warriors. And guess what? Go to Judges chapter 16 verse 19, or just go to Judges chapter 16. You'll find a warrior who used to have long hair, and I think it was locks, and his name was Samson. So you can actually see, even in the Bible, they are there. All over society, this thing is there. The Maasai, they have locks. They are long, they are thin, but they are locks, and then they are red. The Turkana, they also have locks. What are the Maasai known for? Warriors. What are the Turkana known for? Warriors. Are you seeing these things? Holy, those who pronounce judgment over men, warriors. The very top of the society, they used to wear dreadlocks. But how do you consider dreadlocks today? One more thing. In the Bible, it actually goes a step further, right? In Songs of Solomon chapter 4 verse 11, it says, "You are beautiful, my love. Your hair is like a flock of goats." Like it's flowing like a flock of goats. Dreadlocks. This one says, Songs of Solomon chapter 5 verse 11, "Pure gold is his head." This is a lover describing her lover. "Palm fronds are his hair, glossy black like the raven." Locks, a mark of beauty. In the Bible, Songs of Solomon. Also a mark of a warrior, also a mark of a person devoted to God. From ancient times, in all societies. And here we are discriminating against this ancient practice, and yet our God is an ancient God. So they felt that they could not accommodate this lady. And this guy, when he calls her, she's off from geography class. She's actually done her math and then geography class. She went for lunch, and now the deputy principal is calling her into his office, and then he tells her that only Muslim ladies are allowed to cover their hair. Tells her to remove her scarf, the one that's like the turban right now, right? So the school accommodates Muslims, but it won't accommodate Rastafarians. What do you call that? Can you imagine our Corino walking into a school and then tell her to take off her scarf? How would that Mokorino feel, right? How would you feel when somebody asks you to do something that goes against the very tenet of your religion, something that you hold dear? And yet they accommodate other people. They accommodate Muslims, they accommodate Okorinos, they accommodate SDAs, because there was a court ruling in March 4th, 2017, that SDA students were not to be forced to learn on Saturdays, specific. So there's accommodation of everybody. Why wouldn't they accommodate a Rastafarian? Why is there preference of one religion over the other? Because we learn to hate ourselves. Because the white man, anytime he saw dreadlocks, he associated it with Mau Mau. And we internalize that thing because the spawn of the home guards took over the country, not the freedom fighters. We have a negative attitude towards it because these guys, they don't look for the conventional ways of surviving. Like when you put on Rasta, you already know that getting a job will be hard. So people actually interpret it as ignorance because you're not conforming to the system. People also discriminate against this thing because of Mungiki. Because of Mungiki, again, they were trying to get back to the ancient roots, but in the wrong way. And they used to have dreadlocks. And so now, every time people see you, they still have that negative attitude of dreadlocks. That's why they do it. But even if you have your own personal perceptions, who gives you the authority to impose those perceptions on another? Article 30 of the Constitution, it says, every person has the right to freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion. It goes further. You have the right to manifest your religion or belief through worship and practice, teaching and observance. Like the Rastafarians, they practice keeping dreadlocks. So she has a right based on the constitution to keep her dreadlocks. Of what authority does this guy have, this deputy principal, of chasing this girl when the constitution ensures that she has that authority? She ensures that she has that right. This right is even moved beyond the constitution. It comes from God. That you worship him as you please. You always try to ensure that you worship in the right way. But there is no forcing a person to worship in a certain way. Where does his authority come from? You go to the Basic Education Act 2013. It says that schools should develop school rules, but they should not be inconsistent with the act or any other written law. Chasing her out of school is inconsistent with the constitution. So he had no authority to do that. He is imposing an authority that does not exist on a young lady who made it to class 8 and who made it to Form 1 when so many did not make it. And even funny, right? The school, it had a box, like kids were to tick their religious affiliation, and it had Rastafarian there. How would the school put a Rastafarian as an option when they do not know that Rastafarians, they keep dreadlocks? So that they now frustrate a kid when the kid comes to school after surviving so much in her life. Right? I wanted to continue further and say why these people discriminate. Like I saw a tweet by somebody, his name is Steve Ogola, right? He's a lawyer, which is sad in this case, right? Because he wasn't presenting a legal argument. He was presenting a personal opinion, just like this school teacher. Only that the deputy principal imposed it on the student. Ogola could not. Right? I call it elitism. You believe that your way is right. So now the other ways, they are wrong. Because this is what Ogola says in response to this story. The school is right. Let's avoid the chaotic expansion of the meaning of discrimination. How is it chaotic? Because this girl has a belief. And the constitution says she has a right to practice it. Is it only chaotic when it comes to Rastafarians? Was it chaotic when it came to Muslims? Was it chaotic when it came to Wokorinos? Was it chaotic when it came to SDAs? But now it's chaotic. It's a chaotic expansion. Simply because you do not like people who have dreadlocks. And this is how people betray their profession. Because they choose their personal opinion, subjective opinion, instead of objective opinion. Even people who are lawyers or commentators like Steve Ogola. These are the guys who discriminate. They believe they are holier than thou Christians. These Christians who read 1 Corinthians 11:14, which says that it is a disgrace for a man to have long hair. And this was Paul talking to the Corinthians. And the church in Corinth, had a lot of immorality at that time. So Paul was trying to bring some order over there. He was trying to address their customs. Paul also says some other things, right? I think in this kind of like chapter, 1 Corinthians 11, he actually says that when you pray, do not have anything on your head. Now, when you look at the bishops and the priests, when they pray, they usually have something on their head. They don't take it and put it aside. So are they following what Paul said? Paul in 1 Corinthians, right, 11:6, he actually says, ask your wives, sisters, and mothers to wear veils. Are you guys following that? But when it comes to Rastafarians, they shouldn't have long hair. Paul also says in 1 Corinthians 14:34, women should not speak in church, but women speak in church. Women actually lead the church service. So why don't we follow that? But when it comes to Rastafarians, we should follow that. They should not have long hair. Women should stop teaching men. That's in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 11 to 13. Do we follow that? Don't women teach men? But when it comes to Rastafarians, they shouldn't have dreadlocks. This is the idea of selfishness. where we interpret a verse based on what we want, where we interpret the Constitution like Ogola did based on personal opinion, not objective opinion, right? And it's dangerous because we fail to realize what was being spoken and the spirit of what was being spoken. Like in this case, Paul was speaking about the church in Corinth, the customs of the church in Corinth. He was trying to bring some order to the immoral and chaotic nature in Corinth. There is no way Jesus can come and end laws, right? And then Paul institutes new laws after we are free of the law. There is no way that Paul can say that no food makes you unclean at the same time saying that hair makes you a disgrace. There is no way that hair was a matter of holiness by Samson, right? A matter of God's chosen people. Samson and other guys, right, in the Bible, the guys who devoted themselves to Yahweh. And then it becomes a matter of shame. God is not a God of disorder. He's a constant God, right? And Paul was trying to address the problems at Corinth. And if you don't feel that way, then tell your wives to stop wearing veils, tell women to stop speaking in church, and tell women to stop teaching men. And tell priests that they should remove whatever they have on their head before they start praying. So anyway, just on the last issue, harassment and psychological abuse of children by adults, it should stop. You cannot take a kid, call them to your office and then tell them stupid stuff. It's not right. And the kids, we encourage rebelliousness when we act stupidly ourselves. We need to act consistently in line with the principles of God. And when you do that, our kids will respect us and they will not rebel. Teach a child the ways of the law, they will not stray from it. But if you do not follow the ways of the Lord yourself, what do you expect? The Bible also says, do not bring your kids to anger. Many people forget that. They just focus on spare the rod and spoil the child. Do not bring your kids to anger. There is no way you can tell a kid to choose between her dreadlocks and her books, her faith and books. And you're telling her when she's alone. You haven't even called the parents. What's the problem with you? So anyway, I think I'm done. I also believe that we need to kill socialism. I think it's very bad that we need to decentralize, like devolve the education sector. So that's what I had for today. I'll see you guys later and take care. I had a cold. I hope that I managed it well. Bye-bye.